Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. Julie Bolduc has over 25 years of experience in complementary healthcare, wellness coaching, and energy medicine. She's been a BodyTalk practitioner for 13 years and has trained extensively with the founder, John Veltheim. She's a registered holistic nutritionist with advanced studies in Ayurvedic Nutrition and Herbology. Julie's travelled extensively and has set up busy practices in, I believe, Brussels, Belgium, Paris, France, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And now she continues to connect with and coach her overseas clients and their families from Canada. So welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you, Ali. It's really great to be here.
I'm glad you came on because BodyTalk is actually, I guess it's been around in Hong Kong now and it's becoming quite popular, but there's still a big body of people that don't know what it is. So can you just start us off by telling us what is BodyTalk?
The way that we kind of describe BodyTalk, it changes from person to person, practitioner to practitioner, but I'll just give you a general overview and go from there. BodyTalk is definitely a very integrative, holistic healthcare system. And it's based in the philosophy that the body has an innate wisdom that knows what's wrong with itself. And it's very capable of healing itself on all levels. And the thing is right now, because we are a very stressed society, the body is under a lot of stress as well. So what ends up happening is that the communication between body parts in the body, the brain to the body, becomes compromised. And with BodyTalk, we're able to establish that communication again. And there's 3 principles in BodyTalk that we talk about. And that's, when we use BodyTalk, we're really asking permission of the body. We're asking the body what is going on with it. We also try to establish what links there are in the body. And we follow a very comprehensive protocol chart. What comes up on the chart, we call them links. And using these links, we're trying to improve the communication systems in the body. So we're doing a form of muscle checking. So we don't call it muscle testing, but we call it muscle checking or muscle biofeedback. We're asking the body using this muscle testing, following a protocol chart. I wish I could show you the chart. It's very comprehensive, but we're really looking for those links that have been compromised. Okay. And then when we get those links, then we tap the links into the body and we get the brain to kind of normalize the health patterns that are in the body. So we're tapping on the head, the brain. We're also tapping on the heart complex. And then we're also tapping on the gut, the enteric brain. So we kind of have the 3 brains lined up when we're tapping as well. So it's a really interesting healthcare system. It's so holistic. I don't think I've ever seen another modality out there that's like BodyTalk, that's so holistic. And, I've been doing it for 13 years and having some incredible results with it. Just absolutely love it. And the links that pop up for people aren't usually what they expect sometimes, but it's what the body needs and what the body wants to improve. So it's an amazing system. Amazing.
So when you say tapping, what do you actually mean by tapping?
We're actually just tapping, like spreading our fingers apart with our hand, and we're tapping on the top of the head. So we do this gentle tapping for about, 2 breaths. The client's breath, when they're inhaling, exhaling, we're tapping on the head. We're tapping on the sternum area, and then we're tapping on near the navel.
While you're tapping, are you looking for or feeling a link, a broken link? Is that what you're trying to do there?
We actually tap after we get the links that come up on the chart. So when we're going through the chart, we're asking the body, and it's hard to explain while we're, if I had the chart in front of me here, I could take you step by step. But, we have this chart and we ask the body, where do we need to go on the chart? What is important? And we look at it as a priority. What's priority today? that we need to work on. That's important to establish more communication. Whether it's something physical that's going on in the body or emotional, mental, we can look at all aspects. So the body can heal on all levels.
Okay, so how do you decipher what you need to work on? Is that by having a talk with the patient beforehand, or do you just sense that?
No, it's actually, we can talk beforehand. And, as a nutritionist, I can usually have an idea. I have an idea of maybe what's happening to the client, but I usually have to put that aside. I usually have to, ask the body what's going on. So doing the muscle checking, I'll get a yes or no response from the body. So, I'll ask are we doing something with, an organ? And the body will say yes or no. We get a yes or a no response through the muscle checking. So a yes is very weak and a no is stronger. So, and then we navigate through the chart that way. And once we get a set of links, certain things that need to be paired up, and then we tap it out. So we're tapping after that.
So how do you know if you said if it's weak, how do you know if it's weak? Like what, you just don't feel a strong vibration, or what are you trying to feel?
The muscle testing will be weaker testing, right? So, and that's a yes response for us when the hand isn't as strong. We do a specific pulling on the arm. So when the arm is pulled and it's kind of held in place, that's a strong response, right? And then when we pull on the arm and it's very weak, then that's usually the yes response that we need.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Can you perhaps talk us through a session? I know that might be a difficult or sound a bit strange thing to do, but in terms of, I know you don't have the chart in front of you. You probably know the chart off the top of your head, and we can actually include that in the show notes as well.
And that's the thing, because I'll make it very easy for you, because we do have specific things that we ask that kind of make it sound a little complicated, but I'll make it as simple as possible. We always ask for permission at the top of the chart. We always ask for permission if we have permission to work on the client. And usually, we get an okay, yes, and it's very weak. Then we would ask priority in section 1. So we have, our chart is divided up into 4 sections. So we ask whether it's in section 1. If it says yes, then we go through the chart. We ask, where in this section do we need to go? So do we go through 5 elements, 5 senses, consciousness? We have something called EGBs. We have organs. Let's say we go to an organ, okay? And then we ask, okay, so more specific about an organ, and then it says yes. Okay, so which organ are we dealing with? And then we would ask, is it the lungs? Yes. It could be a gallbladder or liver or whatever, stomach, spleen. But we would then maybe stop at the lungs. Is it the lungs? Yes. And we ask, is it more specific about the lungs? And it may say yes or no. Sometimes we don't need to get specific about it. It's just saying, no, we just have to balance the lungs.
And Julie, are you actually asking these questions out loud?
No. No. If I asked them out loud, it would be a very slow session. So I ask to get inside my mind the questions. So I'm asking in my mind, I'm asking the questions. We don't really say them out loud unless we're teaching or we're in class. Yeah, it's just best not to say it out loud. I usually tell my clients after what pops up. It just slows me down if I do it that way.
Sure. So back to the example, you've got to the lungs and it's not specific.
Not specific. And then I ask, is there another link? And it says yes. So I'm thinking, okay, are we linking to something in the organs? Is it another organ? And it might be yes or no. And it says no, it's not another organ. So we're going, okay, is it something in section 1 still? And it says yes. Okay, so organs, no. Endocrines, yes. So let's look at the endocrines. So is it something to do with the pituitary gland? No. Is it the pineal gland? No. Thyroid? Yes. And then we ask, is it more specific about the thyroid? And it might say yes, and it might say no. And it all depends on the practitioner and how much they know about the organ or endocrine glands, right? So we can maybe go a little bit more specific, and we can talk about the thyroid gland. We can get more specific on the hormones in the thyroid gland, maybe T3. And really what's happening here is that the communication between those parts aren't as good as they should be, right? Because all our body parts communicate with each other all the time, right? So after that, I ask, is there any more links? And it says no. So we're going to tap this out. So all we're doing is tapping out the lungs and the thyroid. Lungs linked to the thyroid. Not probably the best example here, and we're going to just tap the head. We hold. A client may hold their thyroid. I might hold a spot, on their lungs, and then we tap it out. So we tap the head, and then we tap the sternum or the heart, and then we tap the navel area. And we're balancing the lungs to the thyroid.
Okay. And presumably you keep tapping until you get a positive result?
Well, we keep tapping until sometimes we feel what's called a shift. So some of us may feel a shift, others don't. Some people feel an energy shift, which is like a building up of, I don't know. So I feel sometimes like the energy building and then it dissipates. It's hard to explain it. Mm-hmm. Some people can notice that there's a lot of tummy gurgles going on. That's usually a good sign that things are shifting as well, right? So a lot of my clients have a lot of noise happening in their stomachs. We know that things are shifting for them. And then once after that's shifted, and sometimes, actually, some people don't give any sign that something shifted. So we just have them breathe for a little while, deep breaths, and we keep tapping for a little while. And then we go on to the next set of links.
And Julie, presumably if you have a good understanding, say in this case of the thyroid, that would obviously help you fix or mend the link. Is that how it works?
For sure, right? So they say the more you know, the deeper you go. If your anatomy is amazing and you've studied really hard with the anatomy, then you would be able to go right into the thyroid and be able to see the areas that aren't communicating well, where the communication breakdown has occurred.
So what's an example? So for example, could it be that the T3 isn't converting to T4 and you work on that particular?
Yeah. Or some people have cysts on the thyroid or nodules, right? So we tend to look at those as well. And same with the lungs. I have some people that have asthma. You can go very deep with specifics, right? Sometimes the body will say it doesn't need all the specifics, right? Because it may be something that's totally not, you don't have the knowledge to do it, but the body knows exactly what it needs to fix.
Okay. And Julie, is there much scientific evidence behind this? Like, for example, you then get blood tests done later on and the thyroid looks like it's all okay. And
Yeah. And what's been really interesting is when I worked at a doctor's office in Hong Kong, we did do blood tests after, and we found a lot of people's levels did change. The blood tests did change. Myself as well had thyroid issues. That's why I'm talking about the cysts and nodules. They were able to decrease and go away. I'm now left with, I think, one little tiny cyst. When I had nodules that needed to be biopsied, I know that this works. When I also worked in Waterloo here in Ontario, I had a client that would always have BodyTalk and then go back and get testing done on her organs. And I can't remember what it was called, Ali, the actual machine that tested her organs, but the naturopath that was testing her was saying, what are you doing? Because this is unusual readings, for so soon after seeing her and getting, naturopathic medicine. And she says, well, I'm doing BodyTalk on top of taking naturopathic medicine. She goes, your organs seem to be healing a lot faster or in better shape.
Okay, so you mentioned that you notice a shift sometimes within the body, within the patient's body. Does that mean that it's worked and then potentially just in one session you've fixed this link?
No, it doesn't necessarily mean it's worked. It is trying to establish that communication back. It really is just one part of the whole session. So we need to do a lot more linking to get that to work. right?
Okay. So back to this session then. You're up to the organs and you've been tapping on the thyroid and the lungs and trying to create that mending of the link, I guess, to use.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. And that's the thing. Once you've tapped that out, then you ask again, is there another priority in the body? Where do we need to go? And it might take you to section 2, which is environment. There are a lot of things in our environment that have effects on us. So it may take us to general environment. And this comes up a lot for a lot of my clients because, obviously they're going to work or there's things happening at home, things in their environment that are stressing them out. Then we would find in general environment, we may find, a person that comes up. What ends up happening is I ask, is it maybe a mother or a father or a brother or the boss that's affecting this client? Usually the body can tell me exactly who it is. And then we tap that person out to the client. So we're balancing the client to that person so that they're not as affected by that other person's energy or, the surroundings that they're in. Or with the person, it's usually, the energy that person is, the client's absorbing something, right? So we want to balance that client to the person that's affecting them. Does that make sense?
And then, so how do you know if that has worked per se? Do they report back that their relationship has changed or what?
Yes. And that's usually pretty dramatic. Most of the times that happens, the clients do report back to me after a week or so saying, you know what, I just realized now that that person isn't bothering me so much anymore. I'm not affected by their behavior as much. And it's amazing because, things that they did used to drive me crazy. Now I seem to be much more patient or calm about it. So that's when I know that that's worked for sure.
So have you had a potential conversation beforehand about their brother? Or have you just actually picked up, did you not even know that they had a brother? And through this body talk, you've actually picked up that they have a brother?
Yes, that happens too. So either they'll tell me beforehand or during the session, it'll just come up, someone totally out of the blue. It's quite fascinating to see, what comes up because a lot of the times I don't like to get a lot of information from my clients. I do like to know their medical history, but usually when we talk beforehand, it's very brief. I just like to see what the body has to say. Okay. And so it's quite fascinating.
Okay, so you've just gone through section 2 and the environment, and then presumably you'd move on to the next section?
Yeah, and if the body wants to go that way, sometimes it'll skip sections, sometimes it'll go back to the first sections. It'll jump all over the chart. So we may go back and forth to different things. Your body has a certain way in which it wants to heal itself. So we are being very respectful and not pushing the body to do anything it doesn't want to do. And we're making sure it goes in the order that it wants to be healed. So what I noticed when I was a nutritionist, if I pushed the body to, at that time, I didn't know I was pushing the body, but, I said, okay, we're going to do a liver cleanse. And I give my client, we do a liver cleanse and they report back to me that they felt terrible. They had just a horrible experience, healing crisis, the whole works. What I know now is, I need to ask the body if they're ready for that, right? The body may not be ready for a liver cleanse. It may need to do something else before that, right? So, we may need to have to do a candida cleanse before the liver cleanse or something, right? So I'm really using body talk, with my nutrition as well to kind of ask the body, what is it that you need right at this time? How can we help speed up the healing process without having a healing crisis, right? So Dr. Veltheim calls healing crisis mismanagement because the body has a way that it wants to heal itself and we need to be respectful and ask. All we have to do is ask.
So when should you see someone for body talk?
Now, that question is really interesting because a lot of the clients that come see me are coming to me when they're in dire straits. They are not well and they've been diagnosed with, stage 4 cancer or, major anxiety or depression and just, having a hard time with medications. And I really like to tell people that, you can have body talk at any stage, and I would rather see you when you're, healthier. So we can work on things before they happen. So we can clear things up before, you get sick down the road. And that's, a lot of the issues I see are people that have stuffed, especially a lot of emotions, right?
Mm.
So the emotional component is huge. If you've had a lot of trauma as a child, and you've really not dealt with that, that will come out at a later date as a form of illness. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So I, talk to parents all the time about, how great body talk is for kids. A lot of my clients are between the ages of 11 and 26. It's wonderful to get on things before they become a bigger problem. So,
and you mentioned that you go back and forth and keep asking the body. Potentially, I'm just thinking, even for myself, my session might last for about 5 hours or even 5 years.
No.
If you keep digging around, surely everyone's going to have lots of things come up.
They do, Ali. And that's the thing. So really your session is just what's priority today? What do we need to work on just for today? And your session may be 20 minutes. It may be an hour, right? But that's it. It'll only go as far as you can handle, right? We don't want to push the body too hard. So we ask and your body will tell us when the session is done. So it's not up to us. Practitioners are totally out of the equation here. We let the body do all the talking and let us know when the session is finished. And then I always ask at the end of the session, when is the next best time to come back? Because it's not my agenda. Your body knows exactly when it needs to come back. It may need some time to process the session that you just had. So it may be a couple of weeks. It may be a month, right? Maybe 2 days. Yeah, you're not going to, we have so many issues and you think our sessions would be so long, but sometimes they're actually really short because some of the things that are on that chart, and I'll send you the chart, some of those things are really quite deep. They go quite deep. They're very getting out a lot of emotional things as well. You don't want to overload the system too much.
So you said something interesting there about you ask the patient when they should come back and their body knows. Their body might know, but their mind might be arguing with their body and their mind might be saying, I'm never coming back again. How do you help the patient in that instance?
If they don't want to come back or...
Well, or if they're just not sure about when.
Not sure. Yeah, I actually let them have some time. I let them see, take some time and let that session process. I do have some skeptical clients, just a few, but most of them end up coming back just because they do see the results. They do see things happening. They come away from the session really weird, but I feel different.
Can you give us an example of some of those clients' testimonials or what sort of results they're seeing?
Yeah, I have actually a 72-year-old lady come to see me for extreme anxiety. She's had it her whole life, very traumatic childhood. Had tried other modalities, didn't work. She was very skeptical of this system just because she hadn't heard of it, and she had tried so many other things and they never worked. So I told her that we'll do what your body wants to do today and we'll see what happens. Because when I send people away after the session, I never know how they're going to feel, or I have an idea. I usually have an idea now, but I let them find out for themselves. And so we did a session and a lot of it was very emotional. We went back into her childhood, did some techniques, which involve some eye rolling techniques, which help disassociate what we call active memories. And these memories are emotionally charged. So when we have these active memories in our bodies, they do create a lot of stress and anxiety. So it's just that we're carrying too much emotional trauma, right? She hasn't had a chance to deal with some things. So this technique was really great in helping her with that. She left the session going, okay, I feel a little strange. And she couldn't quite put her finger on it, but I said to her, do you feel tired? And she says, yes, I feel really tired. And I said, well, that's because you're relaxed. And it's probably the first time that you felt relaxed in so long that you think you're tired. Your body's now going into more of a parasympathetic mode than being in a sympathetic state. So parasympathetic mode is when your nervous system is more in a relaxed state, and it's a restful state. And that's what we want to be in all the time, but we're not, because we're pretty stressed out as a species. So she left, and 3 days later, she called me and she says, "You're not going to believe this." She goes, "But I haven't had a panic attack in 3 days." And she had them daily. She wanted to let me know that. And I said, "That's wonderful. Let's hope it sticks." So she came back 2 weeks later and had reported that, she had had one panic attack in all that time. And she said, "There's something about this system that's just so different." She goes, "We need to do more. We need to dig more." We did one more session with her, and she called me, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks later, and said, "I feel amazing." She says, "I don't know what you did." She says, "But I feel absolutely incredible." And she says, "It's the most relaxed state I've been in years." And she says, and to feel the anxiety is gone. She was very overwhelmed.
Interesting. Julie, do you think, like hypnosis, apparently you can't be hypnotized unless you agree to be. Do you think body talk therapy is similar in that if you don't believe in it, it won't work? Or have you seen instances whereby they're quite skeptical and they've actually got some amazing results?
Yeah. Yes, I've actually seen quite skeptical people have amazing results. Absolutely amazing. A lot of the skeptical ones were husbands that were coming because their wives had such fascinating sessions, and they loved their sessions. So they said to their husbands, "You have to come, you have to come." They came very skeptical and had a session and left. And actually a lot of those men now, probably 95% of those men, have come back because it's made such a dramatic difference to their symptoms, right? It's alleviated so many of their symptoms. They just can't believe it. And it's fun for them because they see the chart, they see where I'm going. I'm asking their body. It's a very logical, sequential type thing to do with, body talk is very kind of left brained. We do bring in the right brain because we're, using that intuitive side as well. But men like that. They like to see this logical, sequential order that, the way that we're going through this. So, yeah.
Have you got any examples that you could share with us where someone's actually had a physical change? Like, for example, they may have a broken bone or they may have some sort of injury and it heals quite quickly after a session or a few sessions?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I had a client who got quite a few of those. I've got a client who had surgery on his shoulder, had to reattach the ligament in his shoulder, had a skiing injury, and it snapped right off. We did a session before surgery to speed up the healing process. And the doctors were absolutely amazed at how fast he was healing because he didn't take any meds after his surgery. And it healed up, I don't know how much faster, but they saw him a few weeks later and they were angry at him because he wasn't using his sling because he felt amazing. The inflammation wasn't there. I've also had a lady who had tumors in her liver that we worked on those. And when she went for an MRI, soon after the session, she had 4 tumors in her liver, and we looked at each tumor. When she went back for an MRI, they disappeared, and the doctors thought, "Oh, maybe we made a mistake in the first assessment." So,
wow, it's interesting. I haven't shared this with you actually, but I've actually had a session myself.
Oh, great! I was just going to ask you if you had one.
Quite interestingly, I had a accident on the bicycle and tore 7 ligaments, as well as getting concussion. One of your patients actually recommended that I go to someone. So there was someone here local. I must admit, I'm quite skeptical.
Yep.
I find sort of things that people call woo-woo a bit woo-woo-ish at times. And so I'm very practical. I like massages that are really hard and physical and that I can really feel. So I didn't really think that this was for me, but I'm always open to trying new things. So to cut a long story short, I did a session, and throughout the session, my eyes started watering a lot, like as if I was actually crying. And I didn't feel upset or anything like that, but I felt that this whole weight of emotion and trauma and stress, probably from the accident, released in my body. And I didn't really want to analyze it too much. I just thought, okay, yep, that was interesting, and I'll just, see what happens. I didn't actually mention to anyone that I did the session. And then funnily enough, that afternoon and even the next day, I had about 3 or 4 different friends that I bumped into, and they're like, oh, you're looking really good, and you're looking so much better. And a couple of people even said, you seem a bit lighter today. Like, and it was really quite unusual because the people that were saying that weren't necessarily, they actually didn't know that I did a session or anything like that. So,
right.
And yeah, so I found that quite interesting, and that's why I got you on the show, just because sometimes it's important to try something even if it doesn't sound like it's for you.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah. And I too was a huge skeptic when it comes to a lot of these things, but I found out about BodyTalk through a friend of mine who lived in Calgary, and I actually took a leap of faith and went to the BodyTalk course without ever having a session, which was very unlike me. But it just sounded so fascinating and so interesting. And to get back to the working with someone who needs, bones healing and all that, I am working with a client right now as we speak who broke her wrist. So she sent me an email just a couple of days ago saying after the session, she noticed that her wrist got really hot for about a few minutes, and then it subsided. So we'll see what that was all about when she comes back next time.
So you mentioned that you became a practitioner, or you did your course before you even did a session.
Yes.
How easy is it to become a practitioner?
It's actually quite easy. It's open to anyone. Honestly, you don't have to be, really knowledgeable about the body. Like when I took mine, I was in a room full of nurses and doctors and physiotherapists. I was the only one that was kind of like a lay person who didn't have that knowledge that they did. In the class, I was probably the one that grasped it the most, the fastest, because I didn't have all that background knowledge, right? I could just kind of soak it all in. BodyTalk is taught, there's a 1-day class, which is called BodyTalk Access, which is pretty amazing. It's a great introductory course. You learn 5 basic techniques to do balancing at home. You can work on family and friends after taking that. You become a BodyTalk Access technician. And then you can take module 1 and 2, which is a 4-day class, pretty intensive, but you learn a ton. And so when we look at the chart, you're learning almost everything on the chart, except a few things. It's a great, great class. I have friends that have taken it just for interest's sake. They don't want to become a practitioner. They just take it for interest's sake, just to learn about the body, learn about the energy systems, learning how it all works together, right?
So after that course, are you a qualified practitioner?
Well, you have to actually do some case studies, and you have to do sessions on people. You have to practice. And then you have to take the course again. You get it at a discount, obviously. They just want to make sure that you really know your stuff, right? And especially learning how to navigate through the chart.
Do you think, though, that anyone can become a body talk therapist, or do you think they need to have the knack?
No, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. Yeah, because you're taught there in class how to go through the chart and how to ask the questions, right? So in the beginning, it's difficult because you're learning the chart and you're learning how to get yes and no responses from the body. And for some people, that can be a little difficult, but it is just practice, practice, practice. And it becomes so easy after that. And then once you get really good at going through the chart, then that's when you can bring in your intuitive side and let your intuition kick in.
Yeah, but don't you think, like any profession, the difference between one practitioner and the next can be quite dramatic?
Yes. Yeah. And yes, I will say that in BodyTalk too, we do have certain practitioners that maybe some people don't resonate with as well as others. So it's really, when I tell people, if they are looking for a practitioner, go on the BodyTalk website and just read through the bios. You can even call them, talk to them. sometimes I do complementary sessions. I do that once in a while. Every practitioner has their own niche as well. So what they're good at. We do have, nurses that are body talkers and doctors that are body talkers and, physiotherapists, acupuncturists. I know there's one in Hong Kong that's a physiotherapist, acupuncturist as a body talker as well. So when he incorporates all three of those things together, amazing session.
So obviously there is a difference, and it's like anything. I mean, I've had a good massage and a very bad massage, and anyone can get a massage certificate, but it doesn't mean that they're good at massage. So I'll put a link in the show notes for that BodyTalk practitioner and let people do their own research there. But I wanted to ask you a question too around doing a session without actually physically being with a patient. Is that possible?
It is. There's techniques that we learn in BodyTalk to actually kind of tap into the energy of the person, the client that we're working on. I've been very lucky to live in Hong Kong and be able to work physically on a lot of my clients there. And when I've come back to Canada, then I do what's called distant sessions on them. And that's, basically I'm able to tap into their energy and their energy field and work on their body that way.
So do you need to be talking to them on Skype at the time, or can you actually do it without even talking to them?
I can do it both ways. Sometimes, they may be sleeping, so I'll work on them while they're sleeping. And other times we can be on Skype and I can just be muscle checking on myself while I'm talking to them as well.
So you don't even need to be able to see them. And then how would you tap?
I would tap on myself.
Okay.
So I would use kind of myself as the surrogate of my client, so.
So is it a bit like ESP in that, I mean, every day I think of a friend I haven't caught up with for a while, and I guarantee you within an hour they'll ring or I'll bump into them or something will happen.
Yeah, there are a lot of scientific explanations for all of this, and a lot of them the name has gotten, but dynamics, this systems theory and all of that, quantum physics show that, we are very much all connected energetically. So, a lot of the times all you need, if you learn, there are techniques in BodyTalk called Mindscape that are really great to learn how to tap into the power of the mind to be able to do things like this. If you become a practitioner, then you can, take Mindscape. Average people, everyday people can take Mindscape as well, because Mindscape really helps you to take control over the mind and to use it for all sorts of amazing things. I've done something called the Silva method back in the 90s. I took Mindscape, and I've taken other programs that are very similar. It's all about slowing down your brain waves and being able to access a lot of that, what they call collective consciousness, or the energy of that client that you're working on, and then being able to do the session that way. It's quite fascinating.
Excellent. Well, in that case, we'll link to your website or your contact details in case someone wants to do a session over Skype or with you. Do you have to have met the person in person to do that?
No, I don't. Actually, I have people emailing me, and we just go back and forth on email if they like. We can set up a Skype call, but normally I don't have to meet them in person. I have lots of clients that I work on just distance, and it's worked out great.
Okay. And Julie, in your, I guess, field of studies, and I guess you've probably done your own studies, but do you know of any actual scientific papers or studies that have been done on body talk therapy?
I believe there is a book that Dr. Veltheim came out with, The Science and Philosophy of Body Talk. And I can probably forward you some of that information as well, if you like.
Okay, well, we'll link to that book in the show notes as well. There's nothing offhand that you know of in terms of actual experiments that have been done that I guess give scientific proof?
Yeah, I know that Dr. Veltheim has been doing a lot of that. I'm just trying to think right now if we've got anything like off the top of my head.
It's funny because someone like you probably doesn't know about it because you don't need it because you've got anecdotal proof that it actually works. So
yeah, but it's good to have that as well. So I can look that up for you. I can get it, and I'm sure that it's listed in our members forum. There's probably something things that we can link to, and I can send you.
Okay, that'd be great. We'll put all this in the show notes. That would be excellent. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to comment on or let our listeners know about Body Talk Therapy?
I would probably just tell people that, it's always worth a try. If you're skeptical, it doesn't hurt to try it. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at the outcome and surprised what comes up, right? And you have to be sometimes ready to do this because sometimes emotional things do come up. I find that, in every session, something usually comes up from the past, or, we have to realize too that, certain traumas can be passed down through generations. There's now scientific studies on that as well from Holocaust victims. Their grandchildren are now experiencing, high anxiety disorders and things like that. So, we need to understand that our body is always talking to us, always telling us things, and accidents that happen are really no accidents. It's in Chinese medicine, they don't believe that. An accident is really a way of waking up the body or waking you up to something that's maybe happening inside. I always encourage everyone, give Body Talk a try, see how you like it, always have an open mind, right?
Excellent. Thank you. And just before I let you go, one final question that we like to ask all our guests. Do you have a tattoo?
No, I don't actually. I don't. I've been wanting to get one for a while, and I've asked my son to design one for me.
So what instructions did you give him?
I didn't really give him any instructions, so we'll see what he...
that's a bit scary. Okay, I look forward to finding out what you get.
Yeah, he does, graphic design and things like that, so we'll see what... Yeah, I just kind of left it open because I thought it would be interesting to see what he would come up with.
Excellent. Interested to see what happens there. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Julie, and letting us know about Body Talk Therapy.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you have any questions, just call or email.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and subscribe.